A leader who is truly selfless would be a nothing. They'd be a marshmallow. You would have no respect for them. What you have respect for is somebody who has principles, who believes in certain things, who has integrity, who is strong, but also, fair and just, who has confidence, who has values that they're trying to protect. Selfless literally means no self. That means you have no values, you have no opinions. If you take that literally, because a lot of times people don't take these literally, they think of selfless as being kind of nice or kind. And that's not what it is. It literally means not having a self. And you could not lead if you were selfless. You have to be self-respecting and self-valuing and have self-esteem to be a leader.
Welcome to the TalentGrow Show, where you can get actionable, results-oriented insight and advice on how to take your leadership, communication, and people skills to the next level and become the kind of leader people want to follow. And now, your host and leadership development strategist, Halelly Azulay.
Hey, talent growers. Welcome back to another episode of the TalentGrow Show. I'm Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist here at TalentGrow. And this week, I am going to try to get you triggered up. I'm not really trying to do that, but I am talking about something that I view as a kind of controversial topic, which is the word selfishness. And I've brought on a psychologist to actually talk to us about how you can take care of yourself without forsaking the people that you care about and the company that you care about. So we talk about this topic. He has a very interesting perspective. His name is Dr. Steve Orma. And he also is a living example of some of the things that he talks about, which is being true to yourself and your dreams and taking care of your happiness in a way that allows you to continue to be of service and of value to those around you. So I hope that you'll check it out. I'd love to hear what you thought about it afterwards. And without further ado, here is the TalentGrow Show with my guest, Dr. Steve Orma. Welcome back, talent growers. This week, I have an interesting and different guest from some of my previous guests in that he is a California licensed clinical psychologist and mental health expert, Dr. Steve Orma. He specializes in the treatment of insomnia, anxiety, and stress. And he is also a podcast host like me. His podcast is called Selfish for Success. And I have been listening and enjoying his podcast. So that was one of the reasons that I chose to reach out to Steve to connect with him. And definitely one of the reasons I've brought him on the show to share some interesting insights with you. Dr. Orma holds a Doctor of Psychology from San Francisco's Alliant International University and has extensive clinical experience helping individuals of all backgrounds from PTSD war vets to students, moms, young professionals, entrepreneurs, and more. He's widely quoted in the national media for his mental health expertise, including ABC News, MSNBC, Fast Company, Women's Health, Shape, Men's Journal, and more. Steve, welcome to the TalentGrow Show.
Halelly, thanks so much for having me.
I'm really glad that you've made time. I look forward to talking with you more about some of the things you've been bringing up in your podcast, actually. And of course, any other tidbits you can bring to us from your world of treating people as a licensed clinical psychologist. But before we go there, I always ask my guests to introduce themselves and their professional journey very briefly. Where did you start and how did you end up where you are today?
So I started actually in a different career, which was acting. I was a theater actor for 10 years. That's what my undergraduate degree is.
Wow.
And that kind of evolved over about 10 years into a few different cities, ended up in New York. And I just got to a point where it wasn't working for me. And I wanted to do something where I could impact people more directly and more in an interactive way. And so I went back to grad school and focused on becoming a psychologist. And when my specialty areas are what you mentioned, anxiety and insomnia and stress and relationship things. And I specialize working with adults. And I use a particular kind of therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Cognitive just means you're thinking, and been doing that now for the last 12 years.
I know that you have also recently personally transitioned from being based in the San Francisco Bay Area, I believe, to Europe. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So in 2015, my wife and I kind of fulfilled a dream, and we decided to leave the Bay Area and go travel around Europe. And we did that for about close to a year, just hopping from city to city and country to country. We worked remotely. And we landed in one city that we fell in love with, which is Bordeaux, France. And we came back here actually a year ago. We've been a little more than a year living, and we rented an apartment in Bordeaux, France, and been living here for that time. And so now my practice is 100% online. I do therapy and coaching online with people.
And mostly your clients are based in the US still.
Yeah. I mean, all my therapy clients are in California just because of the licensing laws, but I see people for coaching in other parts of the US, and I've seen people from actually all over the world from different countries. That's the great thing about technology.
Yeah, so cool. So right now I'm in California and Steve is in France. So I love the possibilities that technology brings to us. The world is becoming much smaller. And I did want to share that with you, talent growers, because a lot of times we dream about things and they seem completely out of reach. And I love the example that, Steve is living by example and doing something like that. He just reimagined his business and did what he wanted instead of just dream about it. So good for you. I love it. And it's inspiring to me.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. All right. Well, your podcast has a trigger word in it. The title of it. It's called Selfish for Success. And I can tell you that from my experience, at least, when people hear the word selfish, immediately, red flags and alarm sounds go off in their brain. I mean, I'm not in their brain, so I don't know, but it seems that it just immediately triggers people into thinking really terrible, awful things. And here you have this beautiful, yellow, cheerful podcast that is titled Selfish for Success. So what made you and I will disclose also that you and I have talked, and I know why you've chosen that word, and I share your perspective. But I thought it would be great to bring you on the show to explain to the listeners why you chose such a word and how do you define selfishness?
Okay, a lot to say about that question. I mean, the reason I chose it is probably a couple of reasons. One is, I would say the main reason is the misunderstanding about what that word means. Because the word, as most people understand it, is what's called a package deal. And a package deal is really when you're combining two different meanings into one word. And that happens in a lot of different words in the culture or concepts. So selfish, as most people understand it, is I'm taking care of myself, or I'm looking out for myself, but I'm doing that at the expense of other people. So I'm walking over people, I'm lying to them, I'm cheating them. So like a criminal or, someone like that, I'm taking advantage of someone to get what I want.
Yeah.
And if you think about that, there's two things going on there. And it's not really in your self-interest. If you really say, well, I'm acting in my self-interest, is it really in your self-interest to lie, cheat, steal, and hurt people? No. I mean, anyone who's tried to do that in their life realizes that backfires very quickly. You don't feel good about yourself. It's very self-destructive, actually not self-valuing. So selfish just means taking care of yourself or being focused on yourself. But if you adopt it as a lifestyle, which is what I try to do on the show, meaning you apply it to every area of your life, including your career, because I know your listeners the show's focused on career, then what it is you're acting in your self-interest as a human being. And as a human being, you have certain needs and certain actions that are going to lead to success and certain actions that are going to lead to failure or self-destruction. And the reason I chose the word is because without it, people feel a lot of guilt when they try to do healthy things for themselves. I see this all the time in therapy with clients. And that's kind of what prompted me. I saw clients over and over, clients that work for companies who are professionals, who are CEOs, and they felt a lot of guilt because they felt they were being selfish when in reality they were just trying to take care of themselves or say no to someone or, kind of pursue their dreams instead of, what other people wanted for them. And so there was this internal conflict and it created a lot of depression or anxiety or relationship problems. And so I wanted to kind of give people a different version or different definition, a meaning of that word. So it's not a choice between completely sacrificing yourself or walking over other people, but instead pursuing your dreams and values in a healthy, self-respecting way.
Yeah. And when you think about taking care of yourself without coupling that with the at someone else's expense, it doesn't negate taking care of others. And in fact, as you said, it's very much in your interest to take care of the people that you work with, that you live with, that you care for, and taking care of your organization and its brand, and taking care of making sure that you take care of your clients. You don't stop taking care of other people when you take care of yourself. You can do both.
Yeah, because other people are a huge value. And this is what people miss or can't see when they sort of, their mind goes to the general, view of what selfishness means. But if you think about it, if you respect your coworkers and you want to have a good relationship with them, it's a give and take. It should be a win-win. And any kind of relationship should be that way. And they're of value to you. I love my wife. I want her to be happy. So I care about her feelings, I care about her happiness, and I support her, but I do that for myself too. So it's both. It's taking care of yourself, but also nurturing the relationships and the people and the professional, relationships you have in your life as well, because all of that is good for you.
Yes. And I totally, totally agree. In fact, when people throw around the word selfless, I don't know if you've seen this, like a true leader is selfless, or even servant leadership, that kind of triggers me. Because I feel like if you think, okay, serving others is a value, I agree. But if you think being a servant, which means to me like subservient or negating yourself and only serving the others, I think that in the end, that brings you a lot of dysfunction to everyone. What do you think?
I totally agree. I think a leader who is truly selfless would be a nothing. They'd be a marshmallow. You would have no respect for them. What you have respect for is somebody who has principles, who believes in certain things, who has integrity, who is strong, but also, fair and just, who has confidence, who has values that they are trying to protect. I mean, think of someone like Steve Jobs, who ran a company. You definitely wouldn't call him, and maybe he's not the best example because people have kind of a negative view of him in terms of his management style. But I think he was respected as a leader, and he was a strong leader. But if you take any leader that you respect, they have a mind, they have values, and you would not respect. And selfless literally means no self. That means you have no values, you have no opinions. If you take that literally, because a lot of times people don't take these literally, they think of selfless as being kind of nice or kind. And that's not what it is. It literally means not having a self. And you could not lead if you were selfless. You have to be self-respecting and self-valuing and have self-esteem to be a leader.
Yeah. And I think that, when you think about things philosophically like that and you say, well, check your premise, what does it actually mean in the end? I mean, if you take it through its natural course to the outcome that's going to happen, if you really are selfless, in the end, you're going to burn yourself out to the point that you're no longer helpful or useful in your role. You can't serve other people in any way when you have allowed yourself to wither, as you said, to become a marshmallow. So you lose the value you bring if you neglect to keep that value going.
Exactly. I mean, I think another way to think about this is the goal, in my view, is happiness. Is for everybody. Everyone goes out and pursues their happiness. Every person on the planet. And if everyone is pursuing their happiness and they're truly doing the things that will lead to happiness. So in your career, it's, pursuing a career that you love and becoming very skilled at it and being accomplished and being creative and whatever it is for you that your specific goal is, because that's going to lead to your happiness. That doesn't require hurting anyone else. You could do that with integrity and with honesty and with respecting yourself and being strong and being a leader. It doesn't at all mean sacrificing yourself or being selfless. And if everybody does that, then everybody's pursuing their values and everyone's being selfish in this healthy way, because it's not about hurting or walking over others. It's about respecting yourself and pursuing your values, pursuing your happiness.
And as you said earlier, you gave an example that your wife is a value. So pursuing your values totally includes pursuing the happiness of those that are important to you, like your team, your organization, and so forth.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure some of your listeners have worked at kind of dysfunctional companies where people don't get along, or they're fighting, or they're backstabbing, or they just don't respect the people. That's a miserable environment to work in, just like it would be miserable to live in a home like that, right? You want to live in a workplace where you respect your coworkers and they respect you, where you're all pursuing goals for the company and for your individual careers that are going to lead everybody to success and to happiness. And it's about working more in harmony and working together rather than everyone for themselves, which is another way people think of as being selfish, but that doesn't really work in relationships.
Yeah. And I know that you help a lot of clients who struggle with that conflict, that internal conflict that's created from trying to pursue a goal that is in their self-disinterest, that goal of, being selfless, or, the society teaches us this. I mean, I think some religions teach us this. So there's so many messages that tell them, hey, you should be selfless. And obviously they have an internal conflict because in your nature is to take care of yourself. Your brain's number one function is to keep you alive. Everything about your biology is rigged for self-preservation, which is selfishness. And that's a good thing. So guilt, you mentioned. Are there any other kinds of common dilemmas that you see? And maybe give us one example and how you help people overcome it.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of this is a CEO that I saw a few years ago in San Francisco, and he had a tech company, and he came to see me for anxiety. And the thing that was making him so anxious was he felt like he had to kind of take care of everything, and he had a hard time trusting his managers to do what they were hired to do, either because he felt like he could do it better, or he was so nervous that they would mess up and then that would mess up the company. And his goal was to eventually, sell the company or be acquired. So he had all this anxiety and stress because he was taking on more roles than he should as the CEO, instead of doing what the CEO should do and lead the company and be more of the broader vision. He was trying to take responsibility for everyone else's job. And so that created a lot of anxiety and stress, and he had to learn to let go and just trust the people on his team. And, I think that I'm trying to tie that to selfishness because I think where that could come in is he was so worried about screwing up and messing up that he put this enormous pressure on himself. Because if you screwed up, well, then, that's going to reflect on himself, on his self-esteem. And he felt it was a responsibility to kind of take care of everyone else in his company. And that caused him to kind of put too much on his shoulders instead of saying, no, this is my responsibilities as the CEO is this. And that actually is going to help the company run stronger if I'm doing that and not trying to do everyone else's job. That's also going to help my health and my mental health, my physical health, my ability to sleep, and also his relationships with his coworkers and his managers, and let them do their job. And he was eventually, through the work, he was eventually able to let go and start trusting the people on his team. And that relieved a lot of anxiety and pressure, and he felt much better. And of course, the relationships he had with his team improved a lot because he was letting them do what he hired them to do.
Yeah, totally. Because a lot of times leaders, if you do the hiring right and you hire people that have the competencies and the values that you need, and then you prevent them from putting them to work and using their own judgment and actually doing stuff, you are definitely sending a message, even if not explicitly, but implicitly or subliminally to them, that you don't think that they can do it. And so that's very demotivating. So he was actually creating so much of the dysfunction or almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because there's this theory I like that I've described in a blog post before. It was written about in a book called The Responsibility Virus, where the more that you don't release responsibility and take on more as the over-responsible leader, the more that you actually teach people to step back from responsibility, because what's the point?
Yeah, I agree. I think selfishness, or selflessness rather, it can lead to you trying to take everything on your shoulders. This is a very common thing I see with clients. They try to take on too much responsibility in their work, I mean, in the home as well, but in their job, they take on every project someone asks them to do, and they get overloaded and anxious and stressed out because they don't know how to say no.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they say no, they're going to upset somebody, and you can't do that. That's selfish, because part of being selfless is sacrificing yourself to others. That's what altruism means. Otherism, right? Putting others before yourself. That's what that word literally means. So, and that's what we've all been taught. The nice, good person is the one that puts others first and puts themselves second. And if you put yourself first and you say no to a coworker, or if you say, I have enough on my plate now and I can't take that on, that's really uncomfortable for people to do. And so they don't do it. And then that leads to the anxiety and the overwhelm. But it also leads to a lot of resentment, because even though they're saying yes, they feel resentful usually for the other person, because that other person asked them to do it and they weren't able to say no. So it just causes all these problems in relationships.
Yeah, totally. By the way, Talent Growers, hopefully you've listened to episode 90, where I actually riff why we are afraid to say no and how to say no. So that will be a great follow-up for this one if you haven't listened to it yet or re-listened to it. So Steve, we're coming close to the end here, and I want to make sure that we share some of your favorite strategies. You have resources on your website, which we will link to in the show notes, where people can learn more. But what are maybe 1, 2, or 3 of your favorite strategies that can help leaders and professionals in general experience greater career success, especially from that perspective that you bring?
One thing here, since we've been talking about selfishness, that's kind of been the theme of the show, is to really know and check in with yourself about what you want for your career. Are you pursuing the career that you want? Because a lot of times people default to a certain career that they never really thought through very well, or sometimes people kind of get influenced or pushed into a career by someone else in their life, like a parent or a friend. And they don't step back and really think about, what is my dream career? What am I, going for? What am I working towards? And I think that should include, it should be a career you love. You should be passionate about it. You should be interested in it, and something that challenges you and that you enjoy doing, and you can put your stamp on it. So I guess that first sort of shift or is to step back and think, am I pursuing the career that I really want to pursue? Am I on the track I want to be on? If not, why not? What's stopping me? And if so, great. And, but you can ask that question every once in a while and check in, because it's very easy to get sort of sidetracked, and that keeps you on track toward where you want to go.
Okay, so let's just say that deep down inside, you realize that you are in a career that is not ideal for you, whether you knew it from the beginning and forgot or tried to forget, or whether it's just no longer ideal for you. Like you said, you were an actor and then you changed. So what would be something a person could do that would be not too overwhelming, but gets them started to make a change? I find, especially people that are maybe middle-aged or more, there's a lot of responsibilities that you have. And there are a lot of, like, you have a mortgage, you have kids or whatever, that tend to keep you chained to the reality you already have established.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a career change, and as I said, I did that 10 years. I was 37, I think, when I went back to grad school, or 34, or I don't know, something like that. Yeah. That could be very challenging, especially if you have to continue working. So I would say, number one, just take it slow. Don't put pressure on yourself. Step back and just first think. Take some time when you're not at work, where it's quiet, where you can just be alone. It's good to do it on paper, because you're just writing out your thoughts, and ask yourself, okay, I'm not happy in this career I'm doing. What would I like to do? What is my dream? And allow yourself to dream. So many times people, they kind of, they stop letting themselves dream, because they think either it's impractical to do that, or as soon as the thing that they really want to do comes up, they immediately dismiss it. And you can't kind of figure out what you really want if you do that. So the first step is just to allow yourself to dream, even if what comes out is completely unreasonable or ridiculous, or, whatever it is, trapeze artist, actor, musician, and just, brainstorm what sounds fun to you or interesting. You might already know what that is. Then once you figure out what it is, and that might take a little while, but once you might need to do a little research, but once you figure out, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to shift to this other career, then create a plan. Don't quit your job right away, but create a plan on your downtime to figure out how you're going to transition, because it depends on what it is. If you have to go back to school, or if you have to go take classes, or you have to get certification, or whatever it is, figure out a plan, step-by-step plan, and then slowly start enacting it on the side. And if you can afford to quit your job, you have enough money to do that, great. Then you could, you could transition to the other thing full time. But if not, a lot of people aren't in that position, then you could do it slowly on the side and build it up until you're ready to make the full transition.
Yeah. And part of your plan can be maybe do some more aggressive saving so that you can create that cushion for when the time comes to, maybe go to part-time with your current career, or even quit completely. It's something you can actually create as a goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And that could be part of the planning ahead. If you need a certain amount of money to make the transition, then figure out what that is and save that up. And then, and that's what a lot of people do. And then when you quit, it'll give you however much time you need to be able to transition into the other thing.
Yeah. You only have one life, and happiness, as you said, should be your goal. And so if you're living in a miserable situation and feeling like there's nothing you can do, we got to change that. So give us one more.
I would say take risks, but, thoughtful risks. Don't, go into work tomorrow because I said take risks and do something crazy. But a lot of times as we get older, we get really safe, and we're so careful about what we say and what we do and the goals we set. And I think to keep your career exciting and challenging and fun, and actually to create juice and motivation, you need to have some exciting goals. Otherwise you'll get bored and you can get kind of just stuck. So, make sure you're going after kind of big, exciting goals that challenge you, that maybe make you a little scared, and then start going after them and take some risks. And then the risks might be, speaking up. Maybe if you want to move up, let's say you want to move up in the company, eventually run the company, communicate that to your manager. Hopefully you're working with someone who will work with you and help you, and tell them, this is my goal. I would really like to run the company one day, or whatever it is. What can I do to help me move toward that? Are there things that I can do? Are there responsibilities? Are there skills that I can learn? But, really be thoughtful about what you want and set those big, exciting goals, and then go for them. And that makes things exciting. And it's also, we underestimate ourselves so much that when you do that, you end up, accomplishing things that you couldn't imagine.
Yes, you end up rising to the occasion. I love it. Well, speaking of exciting, what is one thing that's exciting and new on your horizon, Steve? What's got you energized these days?
Yeah, what's got me energized is I'm creating I guess it's a coaching program is what it is. It's called the Ambitious Dreamer Coaching Program. And basically what it is, it's going to be an 8-week group coaching program for people who have dreams, kind of, some of the stuff that I talked about today. Yeah. So it could be career dreams. It could be any dream, or, you're trying to find your dream romantic partner, but you're being stopped by fear or self-doubt or limiting beliefs. And that's, 90% of the time what stops people from actually going after their dreams. It's not like intelligence or skill or knowledge. It's just, you're afraid, or you don't think you have what it takes. And so this is my specialty area. So I'm adopting that to help people actually achieve their dreams. And so I'm building that program right now, and it, hopefully will come out in the next few months.
Wow, that sounds super exciting. I love it. And you're going to help so many people actually maximize their potential and have that true happiness, or at least live without regrets, which is one of the things that I suggest. And so I know people are going to want to learn more from you and about you. Where can they do that?
Just go to my website, which is www.drorma.com. And so it's DRORMA.com. talentgrow.com, and you can sign up there for, I have a career guide that, a couple of things that I talked about are in there, but it goes over, 13 different ways to be successful in your career, actually to be more selfish in that healthy way. Or, you could reach out if you want to contact me to work with me.
Great. And do you use social media at all? Should people follow you anywhere?
Yeah, I wish I knew I'm on Twitter is probably the best place.
Okay.
I think it's at Dr. Steve Orma at DrSteveorma. I think that's what it is.
All right. We'll double check and we'll link to it in the show notes. And of course, folks, check out Steve's podcast called Selfish for Success. It's right over wherever you're listening to this, somewhere next door. Steve, thank you so much for taking time and speaking with us today, all the way from Bordeaux, France. We appreciate your insights.
Yeah, great, Halelly. It was really fun being here. Appreciate it.
Okay, you made it this far. What did you think? I hope that you enjoyed this episode, Talent Growers, and I'm really glad that you came along for the ride and entertained this idea. I hope that you found it valuable and that you will take action. I think that Steve is very inspiring. I personally am very inspired to think some more about the challenge that he issued to us, to really think about, are you in a career that makes you happy? Is this what you want to do? Have you let go of some of your dreams? And if you have, pick them back up. This is your one life to live. It's way too short and you don't want to live with regrets. So hopefully this has given you practical information you can use and also inspired you a little bit. As always, I'm super eager to hear what you thought. And if you leave me a voicemail on my website, you just go to any page of my website, whether you use your smartphone or your computer, on the right side, there's a black tab. You just record a short message and send it to me and we can correspond that way. And certainly if it's a comment or a question or feedback, I can also play it on a future episode of the TalentGrow Show with your permission, of course. But you can also leave a comment on the show notes page. TalentGrow.com is where that is, or on social media. Looking forward to hearing from you. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist here at TalentGrow. This is another episode of the TalentGrow Show. And until the next time, make today great.
Thanks for listening to the TalentGrow Show, where we help you develop your talent to become the kind of leader that people want to follow. For more information, visit talentgrow.com.